What's up, everybody? My name is Josh LaFleur from Late Start Piano. This video is going to be addressing that concern, addressing that feeling of dread that you might feel if you are an adult, whether you're in your 30s or your 60s, and you feel like you are just starting to learn the piano now, and you feel like because of your age, you feel like you kind of missed your chance. You feel like you should have started earlier. You're kind of beating yourself up because you're frustrated that you didn't start earlier. And you're thinking about how much better you could be now, at whatever age you are, if only you started 5 years sooner or 10 years sooner. I'm going to be talking a little bit about why now is the best time for you to learn, even if you are 80 years old, 70 years old, 25 years old, it doesn't matter. Whatever time you started is, in fact, the best time that you could have started, and I'm going to be explaining to you why logically, and then I'm also going to be giving you some emotional reasons that go behind it as well. So without further ado, point number one, there was a reason why you did not start the piano sooner. Whether you know what that reason is or not, there was still a reason. Okay, so just to give you an example of myself, I used to play saxophone in high school, stopped when I was a sophomore, so that's age 16, stopped playing, focused mostly on sports, went into the military, got out of the military, started working at a full time job from there. And I remember wanting to play piano. This was in probably 2020, around COVID time. I actually bought the Alfred's book, the all-in-one Alfred's book, if you are familiar with that. This is the book two, but there's a book one that has a very similar cover to that. And I bought that in 2020 during COVID time. And I was trying to get into the military around that time as well. So I didn't actually buy the piano because I thought I was going to be going to basic training pretty soon for a few months. And I did not want to start that and then not touch the piano again for 6 months and then try to get back into it. So my plan was, okay, I'll get the book now. Then when I come back from basic and I'm home for a little bit, then I'll start learning the piano. Of course, it didn't work out that way. I got back and then I started to do a lot of other things. I started to work on other things. I started to work at the job full time and kind of shifting my focus from that to making money, just making money, going to school, using those benefits that I got during my time when I was serving. And I can confidently say that if I did not, or if I did start back then, maybe I wouldn't have stuck with it, right? It's a possibility. Maybe I would have got back. I would have said, you know what? I didn't really know anything anyway before I left, and I don't want to start from square one. So, you know what? Piano's not for me. I'm going to move on. I'm going to do something different. That very easily could have played out. And then it took me a few years after that, a couple of years later, until I was at work. And I said, you know what? I don't really feel fulfilled at this job. I'm here staring at the computer screen for 8 hours a day. I need something to do outside of work, something where I can unlock my creativity, something that I can express myself, and something that I can work on and get better at outside of work that I actually enjoy, that doesn't feel like work. So I said, you know what? I wanted to play the piano 3 years ago. I already had the piano book. Might as well just pull the trigger, order the piano, and see what happens. And as I say, the rest is history. Here we are a year and a half later, 2 years in September, it will be. And I'm still playing every day, making these videos, started Late Start Piano, where I can help other people as well decide and help them to play the piano at any age. So that's my story. Reason why I'm bringing that all up is because, again, just because you started later in life doesn't mean it's a bad thing, doesn't mean you made a mistake or anything like that. Everybody has their reasons as to why they did not start earlier. I just told you some of mine. Your reasons might be maybe you were in the military as well. Maybe you were a full time student. Maybe you had a wife and kids, a husband and kids, and you have a family and you can't really do that right now. Maybe you were working third shifts at a job. Maybe you were a police officer or a nurse at a hospital and you're working third shift, so you didn't really have time. Maybe you had some kind of tragedy in the family or something like that, and you just could not start at that time and it got pushed to the back. Everyone has their own reasons. That's okay. If you started back then when you wanted to, or when you were thinking about it but actually didn't, you might not have stuck with it. So the fact now that you just started to play the piano, that's not a bad thing. It's the universe telling you that now is your time to finally begin. All you need to do is stick with it, continue to be consistent, and keep practicing, and you will get better no matter how long you have been playing for, guaranteed. Point number two, If you started earlier, started, let's say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you were a kid, 25 years ago, whatever, it might have been more of a negative. So playing the piano can be stressful, it can be overwhelming, it can be difficult, right? Especially in the beginning, especially when you don't really know a lot of the terminology with music. You're trying to read music, you don't know how to read music, you don't know where the notes are, 88 keys, you can't name one of them. All of these things are very frustrating. They can be very overwhelming to brand new piano players. And if you were to start trying to tackle this journey when you were younger, maybe when you were a kid, let's say, if you're kind of beating yourself up about that, then maybe you wouldn't have liked it. Maybe you were to start to play the piano, but you would not have enjoyed it. It would have actually been a negative on your life instead of a positive, right? Or you can even think about something like if you're a kid again, and maybe your parents force you to take piano lessons. Maybe that was your situation. Maybe you were a kid, your parents forced you to take piano lessons, and you had some older teacher telling you about different sheet music, and you were playing classical music, but you hated classical music. You hated taking lessons. You didn't want to do that. And you played for 5 years or whatever because you were forced to, and then you quit. And now you're coming back 30 years later and you want to take up the piano again, but you want to play it your own way. You don't want to have to go some traditional way where you learn classical music and that's all you ever play, right? That's a good example of if you start earlier, playing the piano might have been a negative. You might not have liked it. You might have been forced to do it. And then it leads to resentment towards the piano itself. On the other hand, if you start later in life, right, and you never had that experience, now your mind is open to the piano. It's also a good thing if you're older because you have already gone through challenges, you've gone through feelings of frustration, you've gone through feelings of overwhelm. So when you get those same emotions on the piano, you're more experienced with those things, you're much more mature, your brain is much more developed, right? So you can handle those negative emotions a lot better than if you started 50 years ago, 10 years ago when you were a kid. And all of that being said, the end result of starting later is you understand the challenges, you understand it's not easy, but you're willing to accept that challenge and you're still happy and you actually look forward to playing the piano, right? So that's another good reason that it's a good thing to start late. Whenever you started, that was the time for you. That was the best time for you, even if it doesn't always feel like that in the moment. Even if you're looking at everyone else and you wish you started earlier, it doesn't matter. Your time is your time. Point number 3 is you can still get really good at the piano and play all the songs you love, even if you start late. This is a big one because a lot of people, they think that, I didn't start when I was 10 years old. I did not start playing when I was 5 years old. I never took lessons of any kind. Nobody in my family played the piano, and they start getting down on themselves and they're basically going uphill immediately. They're already having all these mental roadblocks that they're thinking of before they even have been playing piano for 2 weeks. And they want to play songs that they love, but they can't do it yet because they don't have the skill, they don't have the knowledge to do so. And it can be very easy to keep going on this path and eventually quit the piano. So this point is all about letting you know that you can still get really good and you can still play songs that you love, even if you start late. And the reason I know this is because there are so many different arrangements of a song that you can play, right? So arrangement just being different versions. You can have extremely difficult versions of a song. You can have very easy versions of a song. You can have somewhere in between. You can change the key of a song, right? So maybe you're newer and you want to play something like Boulevard of Broken Dreams, right? The Green Day song, it's originally in F minor, which has 4 flats. And you're thinking that, 4 flats, that might be too tough for you right now. That's a lot of black keys, a lot of things you have to keep track of. That's okay. There's going to be arrangements out there and sheet music out there that has that same song, maybe in E minor. So it's just 1 sharp you have to worry about. Or maybe it's in A minor, right? So it's all the white keys. Things like that. You can find easier versions of songs that you really want to play. And you can work on those in the beginning. And as you get better, as your skills improve, now you already have a baseline of that song. You know what the melody is, right? Because the melody is going to be the exact same, whatever notes that it's being played. And once you start to get better, you can go to more difficult versions of that same song. But just because you Google a song that you want to play, you find the sheet music and it looks ridiculous, it doesn't mean that you can't ever play that song, right? All you have to do, even if you find a difficult version, is just look at the melody. What's the top note in the right hand doing, right? Melody is usually played in the right hand. Your chords and the bass is played in the left hand normally. So look at your right hand, look at the right hand sheet music, look at the highest note. Highest note is usually the melody. And you can play that just with one hand, right? Start off slow, do whatever you need to do, but you'll actually be playing the melody. That's one thing you can do. Another thing is you can just try to find easier sheet music. So again, like I said, you can find easier sheet music in different keys, different tempos. Maybe the rhythm is a lot easier to play, things like that. You can still play songs that you love, even if you don't have a lot of experience playing piano. Even if you started later, all of those options are still available to you. And then, of course, as you get better, you start building on your skills. Then you can move over and play those more difficult versions of the same exact song. Next point number 4, is just keep in mind, piano is not a race, right? So yes, you did start later. I acknowledge that. You're an adult. You don't have as much time, most likely, as somebody who's half your age, right? Somebody who's half your age, they start playing the piano. They're going to theoretically have a lot more time than you to play the piano and to get better. But that's in theory, right? Reality, nobody knows when it's our time, when we're going to go. So you might have more time to play the piano than somebody half your age. We all know somebody that's passed away young, right? And I'm not saying this to be morbid. I'm not saying this to be negative or anything like that, but that's just the reality of life. We don't know when we're going to move on into the afterlife or move on from that next world, whatever that is to you, right? And I'm saying that because you don't want to look at this other person like they're guaranteed more time than you. You don't want to feel those feelings of jealousness or resentment because somebody else started playing 20 years before you did. You just need to look at yourself, understand that you have this amount of time right now to practice today, even 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and use that time in the best way possible. And if you do that, and you are lucky enough to live long enough, then you will see the results. You will see the progress being made. You will see your consistency. You will be getting better at playing the piano. And all the songs that you want to play, all that creativity you want to bring out of yourself, it will happen. It just takes a little bit of time. Piano is not a sprint. It's like any other art form. It's much more of a marathon. It's a race, right? It takes years and years of dedication and practice to be at that elite level. And it takes a good amount of time to just play songs that you love. And you should be taking some positive outlook on that journey, because once you are at that level, once you're at the level where you can play songs that you love, it's going to feel amazing because you know what it took to get there in the first place. So with all that said, just to recap, I don't want you to feel like you're behind with your piano. I don't want you to feel like you missed out on your opportunity, because you still have a lot of time and opportunities to play the piano the way you always wanted to. Point number 1, again, keep in mind there was a reason why you did not start earlier. Don't beat yourself up about that. Reason number 2, even if you did start earlier, then you might not have liked it, right? The version of yourself 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 25 years ago might have had a different feeling towards learning the piano than your current day self. Very important to understand. Point number 3, again, you can still get really good at the piano and play songs that you love. A lot of different arrangements of songs, a lot of different versions of the same song that you can use, that you can work with, and out over time, as you get better and better, then you can move on to those more difficult versions. Last point number 4, just keep in mind, piano is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's going to take time to get good, and that's okay. You should want that, because when your time comes and you feel quote unquote good at the piano and you can play songs that you love to play, it's going to be an amazing feeling, again, because you know all the work that it took to get there. With all that said, I do have a free guide on my website. Link is down below. It has 34 essential tips for the brand new adult beginner piano player to play piano immediately. In addition, I am offering lessons right now via Zoom. If you're interested in those, send me a link at the email. Email is listed down below. We'll set up a day and a time that works best for you. Happy practicing. My name is Josh with Late Start Piano.